Okay, we've already looked at a couple of different ways of correcting our luma or our brightness and contrast issues here in Premiere. We looked at fast color corrector and RGB curves. I want to show you a couple of more options you have, and we'll kind of run through them a little bit quicker this time, just to show you some more options that you have. Let's look at luma curves. We looked at RGB curves. Luma curve here, as I activate it, you'll notice is very similar to our RGB curves that we did before. We have our S curve here for RGB, but it doesn't bother showing you the red, green, and blue. So it's kind of a quicker way if you want to use curves just for luma. You can come in here, build your S curve, as we did here, turn it on, and we've corrected our contrast, and you can see the same kind of changes that we made before. Very quick, very easy, works the same way that we saw in the RGB curves, except there's just the one. Another option, and we'll turn that off and twirl it back up, is brightness and contrast. Now this is your basic, probably most rudimentary method of correction that we have, and it kind of harkens back to the old days when this is all we had. So if you're kind of an old school kind of person, you would remember that in this case we would bring down our brightness. Oh, let's activate it first. We'd bring down our brightness, and then we'd use our contrast to kind of spread it back out. And it's kind of a little game we play that we have to bring it down probably about there, and then to get to our black level we have to expand it back up. And like I said, it's just a little bit of a game between brightness and contrast to get us where we are maximizing the range down here from 100 to 0. Very rudimentary, works pretty good, but not a whole lot of finesse here. Plus, there's a lot of guessing. You know you're artificially bringing down your brightness because my contrast will bring it up. Works, but maybe not the best tool. So I'm going to go ahead and close that one back up. We're going to look at the luma corrector. The luma corrector is kind of a similar type deal to the brightness and contrast, but it brings us a little bit more control here. You'll notice we've got our brightness, our contrast, and our contrast level is a minor enhancement from our brightness and contrast. But these are the ones that we really want to use: our gamma, our pedestal, and our gain. Very similar to what we did with some of the corrections in like the fast color corrector, except now it's basically numbers. The way we would do this is we typically start with our pedestal, which is another word for our black level, and we'll bring down our black level to about where we want it, approaching 0 here, and then we'll adjust our gain to get it up to around 100. And then we'll use our gamma, which is kind of our mid-range, and we'll use that to either brighten or darken the image in this case to get us a little better contrast here and draw out those details that were blown out originally. And now we have our gamma, our pedestal, and maybe gain it up just a little bit more, get us right on that 100 line, and there we have it. So it's a step up from brightness and contrast. Still not as good as our curves that give us a lot more control here. We can build an S curve, and we can choose which one of these midtones that we want to raise up in some cases and lower in others, so that we can get the kind of fine detail that we want. So many options for correcting the brightness and contrast of our image. Again, while we do look at the program monitor here, we really spend a lot of our time looking at our reference monitor. And in this case, we're talking about our YC waveform, which is our way of measuring our brightness and contrast levels in our video. In our next video, we'll take a look at color.